Welcome, providers and families. This is Christina Espinosa and Joanna Famicon. We are here today to discuss early literacy and how childcare providers can support families at home and build their child's early literacy skills. Thank you for joining us today, Joanna. Joanna is a children's librarian with the LA Public Library. And she is here today to share some of her expertise and experience regarding early literacy skills and those little building blocks that can really make a difference in the long term. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for having me here, Christina. It's absolutely my pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful. And let's get started now. What are some myths or misconceptions you would like to dispel regarding early literacy?
Well, the most common myth I see regarding early literacy and reading is that learning how to read has to be so formal, that you need to have the very best conditions, and that it only begins to happen at school. Supporting the skills to get kids ready and excited about reading can begin at day one. Happy birthday, you're born. Let's share a book with you. It's that easy, because that's pretty much what early literacy is: preparing children to get ready to learn how to read, getting them in that mindset, getting them excited and inspired and motivated to be reading. Reading, in fact, is just one component in the 5 major skills of early literacy. The other 4 are talking, singing, writing, and playing, or talk, sing, write, play.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And moving on, can you share any strategies about how families can incorporate these skills into their home life?
Absolutely. I'm going to do it within the framework of explaining and going more into detail about those skills and how you can support that. Number one, I think the top one, and for me, the most fun one, is singing. Now, I know it might be a little bit intimidating because you're wondering about if you're on tune or off key, what does it sound like to your child? And I just want to reassure to parents and caregivers and all the adults who have such a special place in their children's lives, they love your voice. They want to hear more of it. And what's so important about singing is that it breaks down each word into the sounds so that you're singing a note has a syllable or a part of the word. This makes it a lot easier and very motivating and exciting for a child to start learning some vocabulary, being more familiar with the sounds, and hearing that often and repeating it as well. That's why songs are so great, because they get familiar with the words and the songs, and it gets them very interested in either a topic, or the repetition of the song helps them learn the words and vocabulary more thoroughly. So again, it could be as easy as singing like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star at bedtime, or when you want to get them ready for something. Songs are also a really great way to kind of shape the behavior or talk about or introduce an outing, and help with that emotional regulation. Another strategy that, or one of the skills that we can talk about, is writing, which you don't really associate with very young kids, but holding up crayon or a marker in their hand, that really helps with their gross motor skills and gets them ready for gripping a pencil that will come later. But also tracing letters in the air. Writing really helps with that letter recognition. And then finally, another strategy and the skill is talking. Just talking through the day with your child, talking through decisions. When you're talking about what you see, a great prompt to work, ask your child is, I wonder. I wonder what happens if we open the door. What will we see? Will we see the house across the street? Will their door be open too? And it's a great way to find out and discover the world around them is just by talking and having the conversation with each other.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing such simple and tangible tips and tricks that our families can use. And now that I think about it, they're also very provider friendly as well for our childcare providers. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay. And next up, what are some of your favorite or most popular early literacy resources you would like to share?
This was the easiest question for me, and it's really one resource that has so many available resources to it. I'm tied into it. I am a librarian for the Los Angeles Public Library. So my number one go-to resource is going to be visiting the library. But the details within that is making sure your child has a library card of their own. It's a great way to kind of emphasize the importance of reading and going to the library together. But the reason why I say there's so many resources with just that one stop is because it's true. The library has so many books available to check out and share, and programs that they can attend, whether it's story times for your children, play times. They incorporate a lot of the skills that you can use and take with you at the programs as well. And all of it is all for free.
Thank you. That's definitely a great tip. And I especially love the idea of children having their own library card and account because what a great sense of personal ownership and it can last their whole lives. So I know I personally really enjoy having a library card since I was little. Wonderful.
We like that too. I love how you bring that up. Yeah, absolutely. The cards are something that you can have your whole life long. They can, and starting those habits from the very beginning is so important.
Most definitely, most definitely. You set them up for those early literacy habits. Okay. All right. Next question. What advice do you have for providers and or families who are supporting dual language learners?
Let's take a look. I definitely encourage speaking and reading in the language that um, facilitators, parents, caregivers are strongest in. Um, from what we learn in the research and the literature of early child development, um, that that language, like sorting it out between home and school, it does get sorted out eventually. um, but at the end, as you're reading at home in your primary language, to be able to still build those skills with what the language that you're most comfortable with is most important. And then eventually you'll have a bilingual child.
How exciting. Yes. Thank you. Those are definitely some great points.
Mhm.
And some points that we're aware of and we want to keep in mind for our dual language learners and families. So let's move on to the next question. What are your best tips and tricks for getting kids interested in reading?
Read together. And it doesn't even have to be the same book. If you're reading different books and titles, that's another way or another avenue to promote talking with each other, comparing the books that you're reading, asking what happened in that story, and so on and so forth. Um, Reading the same book together is always wonderful too, because then you have that shared bonding experience as well. It's also important for children to see their parents and caregivers be reading on their own, having their own books as well. You're modeling that behavior. And if they see you get excited about a book, they'll get excited about wanting to learn to read as well. And then finally, one of the other skills that I didn't get to talk about before is playing. There are so many ways that you can extend on the reader experience and make it fun. You can pretend you're one of the characters in the books. You can imagine the land where your story takes place right inside your house. There's lots of different ways to play, not just with the story, but even the physical books as well. Especially for the little ones, the young ones out there, building a book tower is awesome. The board books where they can stack it, chew it, try to destroy it, that's fine too. It is okay because it's still building a positive experience around books.
That is such a great and creative point. Thank you for sharing that. I can definitely see how just engaging them with books, making them feel like a day-to-day positive tool to interact with is such a key facet of building these positive relationships. Wonderful. And what about in your personal relationship with reading and your families and or the kiddos in your life? Do you have maybe a favorite experience or favorite book or story that you've shared with other children in your life?
Hmm. This isn't my story, but it happened to my friend's child where they were just going past the room and they noticed their child on the floor with a book and reading, reading every page. And this child was very, very young. Well, it turned out that the child really wasn't reading, but had just memorized all the words in the page because they had repeated it and read it together so often. And while while it wasn't reading per se, like that, everything was there. The foundation for eventually learning how to read and understanding that those letters made up words, made up sentences, made up a story was already set for them. That was the result of the parent and child interacting together and having those moments and the child loving that book so much and that story so much, and that they were excited to do it on their own. That child's ready for school completely.
That is such a sweet and like poignant, moving story. Thank you for sharing that. And I personally have a similar memory, like growing up and memorizing a story and not really knowing how to read, but just like really engaged into that story itself. So thank you for sharing that. And I can really see how these are the building blocks that maybe sometimes we don't realize are super valuable.
To me, it's the whole experience. Reading is not just the words on the page,
Yeah.
it's an experience beyond the text.
All right, Joanna, any final thoughts you would like to share?
I'd like to share like just the idea of how books and stories really expand the world. I want to emphasize to providers and parents and families out there that books offer this window into a world, but it's also a world where you don't have to share alone. Everyone is here. We're all here to help you through that world, help you navigate it, help you find the right books for the right time, for the right child, for the right person, and expand on it, talk about it, and share it. That's what we're here for.
That is such a great closing message. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you so much. Again,
Thank
we really
you.
appreciate yes, thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom and your knowledge and your experiences in this space, in this virtual space. And in particular, I just want to thank you for being willing to do this and being here as another support for our families and our childcare providers. One last time, this is Joanna Fabicon, a children's librarian with the LA Public Library, and myself, Cristina Espinosa, Family Education Coordinator with the QSLA team as part of Childcare Alliance of LA. Thank you for watching, viewers, and best wishes to you all.